everybody, Zach from Primrose Productions Music here. Today we're going to go over something that I thought might be helpful to some of you. If you've never been into a recording environment before, we're just going to go over my studio prep checklist, which is basically just everything that I think a band needs to do to prepare to go into the studio. But before we jump into that, if you're a band that's been around for a while and you're maybe not as far as you thought you would be by now, or if you're a band that's just getting started and you want to take off quickly, I want to give you something that can help you out. It's my 8 steps to getting your band noticed. It's a free PDF guide, free to download. You can just go to primroseproductionsmusic.com/guide and you can download it there. Anyway, let's jump right into it. So my studio prep checklist, the first thing on that list is you need to know what songs you're recording. Seems straightforward, but when you're going into a session, you've probably already discussed with an engineer how many songs you want to do, and you should know which songs it is you're trying to get done. If you're only doing 3 songs, but you have like 12 songs ready, you should know what 3 songs you're choosing going into that. And going off of that, you should also know your songs inside and out, which means you should know what the final format of the song is, you should have all of your lyrics written, and you should know your parts like the back of your hand. Alright, you don't want to waste your time or the engineer's time, and wasting your time in the studio trying to figure out what your part is, that's just wasting your money because most studios charge hourly. So make sure that you know everything that you're going to be doing in each track before you go into the studio. Going off of that, another thing that people need to do that is so often overlooked and they think it's not a necessity, but it really is, practice to a metronome, okay? It'll make your life easier, it'll make the engineer's life easier. Everything will be easier if you have practiced to a metronome before going into the studio. Because I guarantee you, your engineer is going to want you to play to a click track, and if you can't do it, it's going to make things take twice as long. So just practice to a click at home before you go in, and you can avoid that. Alright, you also want to make sure that all your gear works right. So you want to test your cables, alright? You want to make sure that all of your pedals have power, whether that's a power supply that's functioning or battery power. Make sure you have new batteries and everything. You want to make sure that those are all ready to go so that you don't waste time trying to find a battery, or worst case scenario, having to go buy a battery and wasting time. Like, you can't do this part without this pedal, and you need to go buy a fucking battery before you can do it. So yeah, just make sure your stuff works. You want to make sure that your guitars are properly set up. If you've never set up a guitar before, I'd suggest either taking it to a professional to have it done, or asking your buddy that's been playing guitar longer than you and knows what they're doing. Have them set up your guitar and intonate it properly. The other thing you want to do, and no, this is not negotiable, put new strings on your guitar and on your bass the night before the session, okay? Brand new strings, I'm not kidding. If you show up to a session with 3-month-old strings on it, then there's a problem. Like, your stuff isn't going to sound as good. A lot of bassists especially disagree with that. They like the sound of the old strings, but just trust me, you need new strings on your instruments before you go into the studio. Like, literally the night before, you want them as new as possible without having to like worry about the tuning issues that come with a set being put on immediately. So yeah, put them on the night before so they're still fresh. Maybe play them for like a half hour just to make sure that there's no more tuning problems. And yeah, new strings, really simple. A lot of studios will actually have strings for you if you don't have them, but it's nice to bring your own. You know, don't be cheap. Don't expect that the engineer is gonna pay for your strings for you. Just put new strings on the night before, really straightforward. Going with that, this is gonna piss off a lot of drummers. You need to put new heads on your drums about 3 days before going into the studio. And I know, especially compared to strings, drum heads are expensive. I get it. I understand where you're coming from, but you need to remember that the tracks you're going in to record are going to be around forever. Okay? Like, if you go in with old heads and your drums sound like shit, they're gonna sound like shit for the rest of your life because you didn't bother to spend the like $60 to put new heads on your kit. Alright? Just trust me, your heads may sound fine to you now, but if you don't believe me, just put just put one new set of heads on and tell me that they don't sound infinitely better than the old ones. Just try it, trust me. New heads a couple days before the studio, and again, make sure you play your drums for maybe an hour or two before going into the studio so that they're broken in a little bit, but not too much. Alright, this one goes along with getting the new stuff rather than having the engineer supply them for you. You want to make sure that you have picks, alright? Whatever your preferred pick is, make sure you have a few of them, because odds are you're going to change them out a couple times throughout the session, because they will get dull when you're playing guitar all day, or bass all day if you use pick on bass. And drummers, bring your own sticks. Again, studios will generally have some of these things lying around, but you don't want to count on that, because if they don't, then you get there and you don't have anything and you're screwed. You got to go buy some somewhere and it just wastes time. Or even if the studio does have them, you don't want to be that asshole that's showing up and asking for handouts. So just bring picks, bring sticks, not that hard. On that note, you should also bring extra strings in addition to the ones you just put on in case you break some while recording. In fact, I'd recommend bringing 2 extra sets of strings just in case. Alright, this one I would hope would go without saying, but I know musicians, I've done it myself. Don't party too hard the night before, alright? Don't go out drinking with your buddies like, yeah, we're recording an album tomorrow. No, don't do that. You're gonna be hungover, you're gonna be pissed off, you're gonna be not able to play because your head hurts too bad. Just don't. Take it easy the night before the studio, because studio days generally start pretty early. Normally, most engineers I know try and start the day at about 10 a.m. Some go a little earlier, some go a little later, but it's right around there. You need to be up and ready, and if you have a commute to the studio, you need to be able to drive there earlier to make sure that you're there. And speaking of driving there, make sure you are on time. If by chance you're running late, just call the engineer and let them know that you're running late, let them know why, because if you don't, generally engineers will be sitting there waiting for you, and if they're charging you hourly, they're probably charging you for the time that they're waiting for you. If you're supposed to be there at 10 a.m. and they're sitting there waiting for you at 10 a.m. and you don't get there until noon, guess what? You're getting charged for those 2 hours. But if there's a genuine emergency or something happens, you get a flat, whatever, call ahead, let them know what's going on. If you do them the courtesy of letting them know you're running late before the time you're supposed to be there already, if you let them know you're running late and why, they might cut you some slack and they might not charge you for the time they're waiting for you. Again, it's just common courtesy, okay? It's not hard to pick up a phone and let them know, hey, we're running late, I'm sorry, we'll be there as soon as we can. Alright? Simple things, manners, respect, they go a long way. Just, if you're running late, let the guys know, okay? So anyway, if you've done all of those things, then odds are your recording session is going to go off without a hitch, not going to run into any problems, things will be smooth sailing. If there's anything that you like to do before going into the studio, please let me know in the comments what it is. I'd like to add it to my list if I think it's something that's useful. Yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.